So this issue of like the idea of medication is again to try to force conformity. And right, so this child is acting out of line, so they need to be medicalized so that we can get them back into conformity. Logan, I know that you have written some things around conformity and around, you care to speak to kind of, what you have come to understand around the hyper conformity model that we have in education?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a book coming out in December called Conform or Be Cast Out. It's the literal demonization of nonconformists throughout history. Here it is, if you can see it. It's coming out December 1st.
Conform or Be Cast Out. It's about the demonization of nonconformists. Keep going.
So one of the things I look at this book is just the way that society has tried to punish not people who don't conform to the expectations throughout history. And education is a really important one, and mental illness is another important one. People who don't conform to your expectations get demonized in more ways than one. And in this book, I'm specifically looking at actual like literal demonization, where people are called witches or Satan worshipers or possessed by demons and things like that because of it. And you see it with medical problems all the time. Like mental illness used to be regarded as demonic possession because it was different and people didn't understand it. And I think you're seeing that now. It's kind of been reversed, whereas nonconformity is now called mental illness instead of just people being different. Anything that doesn't conform is now being called an illness, some kind of a pervasive, insidious disease that has to be corrected with either medication or surgery or, all kinds of horrible treatments that are really damaging to people. And so, I just wanted to trace that history and that lineage of society trying to punish things that don't fit into an expected box, and how damaging that has been to people. Because when it comes down to it, nonconformity is necessary for progress. If everybody was the same, nothing would ever change. It would be fine. And, I'm not defending all nonconformity, because obviously there's violence and there's things that need to be conformed to. But if you don't allow that kind of wiggle room for people to do things differently, you're never going to have any innovation. You're never going to have any progress. Society's never going to advance. And so I think it's a really damaging tendency of the big institutions in society, of which schools are a major one, to try to tamp down any kind of thing that breaks out of that mold and is a little bit different.
Yeah, and it's really that. Sorry, Matt, I'm going to barge in here because this is my passion. It's really resonating this line, because my passion is like helping people get out of being stuck in systems. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. We need a lot of different pathways, which is why I called my research and development company 100 Roads, to get to where, the diverse population that we are as humans, so that we can chart our own, we need enough fluidity so that we can actually chart our own courseway, our own pathway to get where we need to be going in life.
Yeah. So let me tell you a quick kind of story, if I could, from just my own example. And Logan, you mentioned this a little bit already, but so my son, I think I shared with some of our listeners may know this. So he, we hybrid homeschooled and then homeschooled, and then he wanted to go to public school in his high school years, and he went, and it was really frustrating for me to watch how much he had to conform. He had to conform to when he was studying, what he was learning. The books that he used to read before high school, he had to stop reading because he really didn't have the time to read things that he was interested in. He was into poetry. He was in all sorts of stuff, right? Geeky things actually he was into. But when COVID hit last year, he was free. He started reading. He read 30 books in the first couple months of COVID. He started playing the piano. He plays the piano now all the time. So COVID was this time when, I watched this kid blossom when the 3 years previous, he was just being, having to conform in order to fit this mold. And so I'm so hopeful that, parents that watch your video, that hear a story like my son, can start to go, man, it's not that school is good enough. It's that school actually might be bad, and there's something that's far better that's just on the other side of it, if I could just actually figure out how to structure that. And so that's what I'm hoping that these conversations can actually start to germinate.
That's exactly right. And I think it's been a real silver lining of this whole pandemic that people are starting to see that and started to realize the problems. We had one of the policy experts we interviewed for this said very succinctly and correctly, I think, that COVID didn't break the public school system. COVID just revealed the cracks that were already there. And now everyone can see the problems that were already existent, but they weren't aware of them because they didn't know anything else. And now you've given people a chance to escape that system for about a year. And they've been like, oh, well, this is different. This might be better. And they might find a different way of doing things. And so I'm real optimistic that that's going to improve things. If you look at the statistics on homeschooling, they have just skyrocketed in the last year. I think the number of homeschoolers in America has tripled, and the public support for school choice and for different forms of education has gone through the roof as well. So that's really good news, and I'm very optimistic about it.